Hey friends, it's me Alyssa and I am back with Live and Local Atlanta. It is the start of 2024. I can't believe I'm already saying that, but we've made it through the holidays. Well, most of us, but we've mostly made it through the holidays. I'm here with my incredibly gifted, talented, smart, intelligent friend. I'm here with Dr. Ajita and she's going to talk to us a little bit about mental health, getting our life right, setting 2024 up for success. Dr. Ajita, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a
I
pleasure.
am so glad you're here. I'm so sorry about that. Didn't mean to cut you off. But I want to talk about, first and foremost, mental health. Let's start with the holidays. And, not everybody kind of made it with us. Maybe they kind of lost their light a little bit, lost their way. Let's start with how we can recover from the holidays and be there for people to help lift them up.
Absolutely. So I think what happens in the holidays is for many of us, we recognize what is missing, right? It may be the loss of a loved one. It may be that our identity has changed. For many of us, our relationships changed, right? So people are going into the new year uncoupled, right? And so I think a big part is to recognize that all of those transitions, all of those changes, they're grief. And so that means that we actually have to acknowledge that we're grieving and the whole host of emotions that comes along with that, right? The sadness, the joy that comes along with the grief, the anger even, right? The unexpected, the guilt, all of those are natural, right? And so I think the first piece is recognizing that we are grieving and that we like and would like support on that journey.
I love that. I love that. And I think you're so right. I think a lot of people, we get tied up, especially right at the end of the year. Family, holidays, expectations. Oh, why am I not married? Oh, I'm getting divorced. Why don't I have kids yet? Why am I not in a relationship? And it's really, we get this chance at the start of the new year to take a look in the mirror and say, it's go time, it's me time, even though we should do that all year round. But now more than ever, everybody's taking a look in the mirror and saying, it's time to work on me and get that change going. Now, I want to ask you just a couple quick questions in regards to how do we set up the new year positively?
hmm I think one of the things is to not focus on goals, right? And I know that that is counter to what a lot of people are saying is set your goals, set them in 90-day increments, make sure they're measurable. And instead, I actually want us to start with what are our values? Right? What are the things that we value? What are the things that we desire for ourselves? There are so many of us that have set goals that actually dishonor us, that if we actually do it in a reverse, then our goals make sense and they're in alignment with the life that we actually desire, right? I talk to people every single day who are burnt out because they've set goals that are achievement based, that are really about societal pressures about what we should be doing. And so really it's an opportunity to kind of reflect on what actually matters to you. What does a good life look like? And if we think about what a good life looks like, what does the day-to-day look like? How am I spending my time? What does it mean for my health? What does it mean for my finances? What does this mean spiritually? What does this mean from a family and a relationship perspective? And then we allow our actual goals and our actions to achieve that life to follow suit.
I love that. Now, one thing I think a lot of people tend to miss when it comes to wanting to, do self-work is just being able to take that first step. And you hear it all the time. It's like if you want help, you'll get help. If you want to change, you will change. Like you'll find the means to change. What can you say to people who are afraid of even taking step one?
Hmm. I think that one, we just have to be more compassionate, right, towards ourselves. That getting it wrong doesn't mean that you failed. It means that we had an opportunity to learn, right, and to embrace those lessons. I think that we just have to be kinder to ourselves about what it means to be curious. And so sometimes we say, "I'm not good at" or "I failed at." But what if instead of saying those things, I'm learning? I'm curious about. That leaves a lot of room, right? Like when we're teaching a kid to walk for the first time and they fall, we don't say, "Oh my God, you can't walk." It's like, "Oh no, they're learning to walk," right? And
Right.
when we take that perspective, we expect missteps. We expect that they'll fall down. The beautiful thing is that they get up and they keep trying, right? And so I think giving yourself permission to be curious and to be learning and not perfection.
That is a really great way of looking at that because you're right. When a child is learning, whether it's walking, riding a bike, they don't fail. Like they don't just stop after the first mistake. It's like you
hmm
got to get back up and try again. And I think you're so right. Whenever this transition in life happens from childhood to adulthood, there's just something there that we're so scared to fail now as adults.
Absolutely.
I don't know if it's that, hey, I'm an adult, there's more permanence to every action I hold.
Absolutely.
But I think that's so true. Just have a little bit more compassion for yourself, and just kind of make it to a learning opportunity. Switching vocabulary, keeping your mind open. I have to do that. I have to remind myself, try and keep an open mindset, try and keep a positive mindset, if
Absolutely.
you will. Now, one of the things I want to ask you that I think you might have briefly touched on a little bit is, can you help us explain setting realistic expectations? Because I think people get confused with setting a goal versus an expectation. Like, what's the difference between those two, and what's setting realistic expectations?
Absolutely. So I think oftentimes, we expect, or we might set a goal and we expect. So expectations is how we measure that goal, right? And so we have a goal, an outcome that we desire, and then we have some thoughts about how consistently we meet that goal. And for many of us, if we're starting at something we've never done before, having an unrealistic expectation is that we're going to be perfect at that thing, right? As opposed to making incremental progress. And so I think often what unrealistic expectations is happens is when we're not clear about where we're starting, right? And we're not clear about what it takes to get from point A to point B. And I think factoring in that we're human, that we're learning, that we'll make mistakes, and that is normal and natural. And so I think things that may be important is, in the new year, we often have goals of going to the gym and working out. But if we've not been going to the gym at all, we probably shouldn't set a goal or an expectation that we'll go to the gym 7 days a week. A realistic expectation, if we've not been going at all, might be, I'm going to go to the gym at least once a week. And once I've done that consistently, I'm going to bump it to 2 times a week, because we get to practice the behavior, right? It also gives us room to say, not only am I going to go and make this a habit and make it a routine, I'm going to make that consistent even when things don't go as planned. Because often what throws us off is something unexpected happens. We don't feel well. Doing that ab work, and we realize that it's lit up our muscles that we hadn't been using in a while, and we don't feel well. Or life is just lifing, and we haven't created the discipline to do the routine even when we don't feel like it, right? And so I think what's as important as expectations and goals is discipline and commitment.
And I think that's such a true thing to say. I think breaking down a goal into these realistic expectations, like going to the gym once a week or when you're ready twice a week, I think that is truly a great way of doing that. Can you share maybe some baby skills or little tips and tricks to help people set the realistic expectations? Like, oh yeah, I'm going to say I'm going to do this, or what is, like, whether it's I'm going to learn a new skill. Can you give us some, tips or tricks to help somebody set a realistic goal?
Absolutely. So this one comes from kind of cognitive behavioral therapy. And so as clinicians, we set goals as far as what we think type of progress clients can make in 90-day increments. And so we like to set the overarching goal that at the end of 90 days, this is what we would like, right? So a client to be able to have a good sleep hygiene or a good sleep routine. But at the end of 30 days, the thing that I want, the client to be consistently doing is setting a bedtime, right? And trying to adhere to that bedtime. And so one of the things that's specific is to break that larger goal into smaller steps. And so if there's something that I want to do in 90 days, what's a good benchmark for 30 days, a good benchmark for 60 days? And then on a weekly basis, how can I measure whether or not I'm making progress towards that goal? And so again, we're breaking it down into bite-sized pieces, right? And to think about what are the behaviors, what are the thoughts, and what are the feelings that support me progressing towards that goal. One of the other things that is really important is accountability. And so when we not only make our goals clear and we have specific and measurable steps, but when we're in community around those goals, when other people know that this is something that's important to us, we know that the data says we're more likely to accomplish and or make progress towards that goal, right? And then the last thing that I'll say about that is oftentimes it's important, most of us can meet our goals if we engage in the behavior that leads to that goal 85% of the time. Not 100%, 85% of the time, right? And so that also gives us some room to not do that thing that day, right? For life to happen, for us to fall off track and to get back on course, is because we've already built in some compassion, we've built in our humanity in the process, right? And so I think those things are really important.
I think that's such an incredible way of breaking that down. So many thoughts are going through my head about my own personal goals as you say that, and like, what can I achieve? What can I do? So I love that. It's an easy way, easy flow chart almost, if you will, of being able to achieve those goals. Now, I want to ask, how can people, nobody's perfect, of course, but some people just don't set those goals for themselves or those expectations or say, hey, I'm going to work on myself this year. How can those people be of support in somebody who's wanting to change and grow?
So I think one way is to continue to just give them positive affirmation, right? And so I like to think about when we see people who are running a race and they have a guide with them, the guide doesn't set the pace. They match the pace of the person they're helping, right? And so I think having people that understand your goal, but that also will give you grace, that won't allow you to just make excuses all the time, but that will help reorient you to why that goal is important. And so I think that's part of the reason we start with our values. And so working out that in and of itself isn't the thing that I desire, right? But I desire to feel better in my body. I desire to have more energy. I desire to be able to play with my kids. And if I can refocus on that desire, I can then motivate myself to do the thing that I actually may not feel like doing, right? And so having someone that understands that relationship between those can kind of cheerlead you when you're not feeling right up to it. And so I'll often, call a girlfriend and say, hey, I'm going to the gym, will you go with me, right? And so someone that will just do that piece with you. We accomplish amazing things in community, and so I'm always going to push that as a way to kind of push us forward, because it's something about having other people that are willing to go on the journey with you that helps us stay consistent, right?
That is so true. Now, you have this incredible book. You mentioned a little bit of grief earlier. You've got The Gift of Grief, and I want to talk about this a little bit. Can we go into some details behind the book?
Absolutely. So one of the reasons that I wrote the book is I recognize that there's so many people that are grieving things that are death-related, but that are also not death-related, right? And oftentimes I hear people talking about they feel like they're grieving, but their grief, like, oh my God, but no one died. And really wanting to make sure that they have the language to describe those non-death related losses, the things that we navigate every single day, like the changes in our identity, the loss of a job, the loss of a relationship, the loss of friendships. Those are losses that our body doesn't know the difference, right? That it's not a grief that's related to somebody dying. The body doesn't recognize that it's a psychological injury that the body wants to heal, right? I also thought it was important because there's so many people that need the support and access to information, and they're never coming to therapy, right? And so I wanted to make that accessible support and recognizing not only how do you name the things you're experiencing, but also what are some tips that can help us once we recognize that we're grieving? What are some things that we can do if I have a loved one or a friend or a coworker that's grieving? And so that's why I wrote the book, is to really help people identify how to navigate loss after, right, life after loss, but also how to better recognize that that exists on a continuum and that we're grieving on a daily basis, right?
Absolutely. What's been your favorite part with the process of writing a book, having an idea in your head, putting it on a page? What's been your whole favorite process with that whole thing?
I think one, getting out of my own way, right? It's hard to finish a book and feel like it's complete, especially with grief, because there's so many things that encompass it, right? But one of the things that's been really just impactful for me is getting messages from people literally all over the world saying, oh my God, thank you so much, and this really helped me, and I didn't know what that was, and you gave me words to describe what I was experiencing. That's the reason that I wrote it, and I'm just very thankful that it's having the effect that I had hoped.
I love that. Dr. Ajita, I want to allow people the chance to know you a little bit more personally, so I'm going to ask you a couple fun little rapid fire questions. See if I can pick your brain a little bit. Nothing too deep, I promise.
That's okay.
Okay. So you are waking up in the morning and you're running late. Are you grabbing a coffee or are you grabbing your lunch?
I'm grabbing lunch.
You're grabbing lunch.
Always.
What's in the lunchbox?
Probably a peanut butter and jelly sandwich.
Oh my gosh,
I
me
know.
too.
Yes.
Me
Yeah.
too. People want to say, oh my gosh, unsophisticated. It's perfect.
It's
simple,
perfect.
easy, gets
Absolutely.
the job done. I love that. Okay. It's a long day at work. Are you, at the end of the day, going to go out to socialize with friends, or you want to go home and decompress?
probably go home and
Go
decompress.
home.
Yeah.
What is your go-to for decompressing, relieving that stress after a long day of work?
Dancing. Good music and
Oh,
dancing.
I love that.
A lovely dance party in the living room, in the bathroom, wherever.
Socks on or socks off for dancing?
Ooh, socks on.
Oh my gosh, that's dangerous.
It is, but you can move and groove a little bit better if you can slide across the floor.
Oh, I'm too scared to do that. I got to do it socks off for sure. Socks off for me when it comes to my dance parties. I love that. That is so fun. All right, walk us through your de-stress playlist then. Top 3 favorite artists you want to hear.
Oh my goodness. So Marvin Gaye. That is
Okay.
so. Oh my God, that's gonna age me just a little bit. Ashanti,
Okay.
and my recent favorite. This is so my kids. Probably Ice Spice. Yeah.
She has been kind of having her little takeover moment. I
Uh-huh.
like that. I
I'm,
like that.
I'm more of a beats person, right? So if I can get the beat, then yeah, that'll do it.
I feel you. I feel you. I love, for me, when I listen to music, I truly love just enjoying the instruments. And, like, it's like every time I listen to a song, I'm like, I didn't know they had, like, a little Guido going in the background. Or I'm hearing the bass for the first time, like, differently. So I love to listen for the instruments.
Yes, and
I
I'm
think
one of
that-
those people that I almost never hear the words. So I'm like, oh,
Me too.
I didn't know that's what you said. Right?
I make up the words.
Mhm.
All the songs, I have my own version of every song.
That's right.
It's the Alyssa version. So, how can people get your book, stay in contact with you, your website, your social media, all of that?
Yes. So my book and ways to connect me, I'm Dr. Ajita on everything. AjitaRobinson.com is where you can connect with me. I'm Dr. Ajita on all platforms.
I love that. I love that. Dr. Ajita, thank you for joining me today. You'll have to come back soon so we can check in on everyone's goals and make sure 2024 is still rolling smoothly for
Yes.
them. This is Live in Local Atlanta. I am Alyssa. Make sure you download the free Odyssey app today. That's AUDACY inside the App Store. Once it's downloaded, you need to favorite Star 94 Atlanta so you can get notified of exclusive conversations just like this one when it drops. And of course, if you want to give me a follow, you can follow me at across all social media at itsme_Alyssa D. I'll see you guys next time.